and make sure everybody can hear me. Yeah, so yeah, this is set up. All right, good. I'm sorry I missed the class on Wednesday. Again, we'll make that up during the midterm week, as well as have individual conference sessions. So, okay, so since we are go, this is easy compared to the other classroom I was in. I don't know if somebody set this up for me, whoever was, thank you if they did it. Oh, I forgot. I've got to make sure that I get rid of my chocolate. And so here, distribute the chocolate. And let's, you don't want the chocolate? So let's go to the USB here and go to methodology and open up the lesson plan. And so there you see the lesson plan. I think, well, make sure you can see this. So I go to share screen, and there you see the lesson plan. Okay, we're ready to go here. And so to South Koreans, political correctness is good management. So I guess we should look at the notes. And you know, the textbook has changed quite a bit since the previous edition. So they also brought in a new author. Whoever this is, Peter Williams. That person was not an author in the previous edition, and also they're trying to introduce the utilization of the software that they've developed to go along with the book. And I have to look at the software more closely on my own, but I don't think that really that software can be avoided in terms of the utilization in classrooms, but I'll have to see how we can use that. And of course, like anything else, it has to be purchased. So, and that means I have to buy it. But they provide you with an introduction to their software that's supposed to be used by corporations. And they go out of their way in this chapter to say, this is not for education, so don't use this to teach students. And I don't know why they say that, but they seem to have a lot of confidence in their software and being useful in the business world for managers who want to evaluate their company as to whether or not their company is effective in reconciling cultural differences in an effective way to maximize value creation and profitability. And so again, the book is written in simple terms, in terms of at least the level of complexity of the language not being so great. So they say, of course, respect. That sounds really great. We all should respect each other. And respect for what? Respect for human dignity and uniqueness of a person from another culture. Again, like I mentioned, sorry, somebody say something? I thought I heard somebody raise an issue, but you know, as I mentioned in my comments on your paragraphs, this all sounds great, right? But you know, when you become a manager, the most difficult task you face, and you will face it, is you have to terminate somebody who's not performing. And you have to have an effective evaluation system, and you have to be willing to implement that evaluation system, including telling people or informing your employees, some of them, they can't work anymore for you. And that is one of the most difficult, terrible experiences that people go through. But it's probably where managers make their biggest contribution, that you have to hire the right people, and we all make mistakes. You might hire the wrong person, and then you need to have personnel turnover. As I told you, the vice president of the university where I taught before I came here, the American University in Bulgaria, told me that in setting up that new university, that if it's successful, if you're successful in creating the institutions of a successful university, you should expect that 10% of your faculty will have a turnover every year. So 10% of your faculty will leave, maybe not quit. Some will go on fellowship. Some will take a leave of absence to do something. A lot of those people will be asked not to come back. And so you have to, and so this notion of respect for human dignity and uniqueness and respect for a person's right to self-determination, that's true, that's great. But when you fire somebody, they typically are not going to admit that they are the problem. They're going to admit, they're going to deny that they are the problem. They're going to claim that they're being discriminated against, that you as a manager or I as a manager don't like people like me because I come from a different national background. I look different. And they will claim prejudice and bias. And so, well, just to keep this in mind, if you become a manager, the most important obligation you will face as a manager is to make sure that you do not provide documents or material or evidence that can be used in an effective lawsuit against your company for somebody who sues the company for being terminated or asked to leave. Because if you put something in writing, or you do not have in writing the right policies and procedures in place, they will sue you in a court, and you do not want to lose that lawsuit. And so this all sounds great. You should respect human dignity and respect a person's right to self-determination, but you got to keep in mind that you're still also, you have to be willing to implement evaluation procedures, and that's a critical issue. How do you evaluate people's performance? How do you evaluate people's performance in a multinational company that has many different cultures, people coming from many different national backgrounds, who, you know, view time differently, for example, view relationship to the environment differently, I mean, they act differently. How do you evaluate their performance? And of course, Trompenars, because let's just use the term Trompenars because it's too much trouble to say Trompenars and Hampton Turner or Trompenars and Williams. They require or recommend that you have the evaluation procedures happen at the lowest level of the corporation. That if you're a multinational global corporation, that you make sure that your Indian manager manages and evaluates the Indian employees in India for your subsidiary for your company based in India, if you're Hyundai or Exxon, right? So these are all general notions about what's proper and appropriate in terms of, you know, dealing with cultural differences. And it all sounds very optimistic and nice, but in terms of respect, okay, yeah, we should respect each other's cultural values. That's great. Reconciliation of cultural differences. This is the capacity to deal with people with differences among cultures of the people that work within your organization. And this effective reconciliation can create value. You should not view cultural differences as a problem. They are a source of value, he's claiming. I'm still trying to comprehend what they mean by that, because value typically means profitability. You create more money. You are more successful in against your competitors because you accommodate cultural differences and reconcile them in an effective way. And that sounds wonderful. Yes, great. Cultural differences are not just an issue, they are a resource. They can create more profitability. That's great. The culturally competent person successfully recognizes cultural differences and ultimately reconciles them. And he or she, the manager, does so by transforming these conflicting values into complementary values. The competent person needs to master the materials available to him or her. So that means including the cultural differences as materials. And simultaneously, this person needs to feel passionately at one with the mission of the entire organization. Okay. So many different organizations, so many different businesses. That's great. The culturally competent person understands that he or she needs to apply his or her brilliant analytical skills so as to place the contributions of the different human resources within a broader.
I have an answer, I will tell you, okay? Okay.
Sorry? Can you hear me? I think you can hear me, right? Okay, so maybe that's a good point. If somebody's trying to remind me that we need to do the cyber campus. And we go to cyber campus, English, and methodology. log in, and I have to type this in. Like that. And we go to here, I think. Yay. And I think that's there. And we go to week 6 and Smartu Chulsok. And your number is 933. Hooray! 933 is your smart attendance number. So then we go back to the chatting 933. Like that. And then we send that. All right. So then back to the notes, because this is our short class. We don't have too much time today. And, I'm trying to make up for, well, the missed class. But you should have your own priorities, but again, try to accommodate parallel processing. Don't be too linear, but you be linear and sequential, linear and synchronic. Have priorities and steps, but parallel synchronic processes continually in motion to attempt to meet those goals and the different units or levels within the organization. The expectation is upon this successful, brilliant manager to develop a brilliant strategy, while simultaneously this person is expected to have all the answers to the inevitable questions when his or her strategy fails to meet its goals. And so you have a lot of pressure on you. And to go on here, they talk 3 levels of reconciliation function deriving from the 7 dimensions of culture. And these 7 dimensions that we've already covered, including 5 that focus upon human relationships and 2 that focus on time and nature. And human relationships, well, let me do an exercise here now that we all got you here. We covered last week about inner versus outer directed cultures in terms of developing over the many generations their orientation towards nature. And Trompenaars claims that Asian cultures are more outer directed, that you accommodate to nature. You don't try to master nature and conquer nature the way mechanistic Northern European societies tend to view the relationship of person to the environment. And this is reflected supposedly in the glory that we give to great conquerors of the marketplace, whether it be Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, or Elon Musk, or who's the other old person that whose name? Well, his name doesn't come up. Well, let me see if I got it. I got the exercise statement here, but Warren Buffett. Yes, Warren Buffett, the old Mr. Warren Buffett, who's still actively involved, is one of these titans of the universe. That's how the American media describes these towering economic leaders, that they have successfully conquered their environment, and versus supposedly Asian cultures that are more oriented towards accommodating and adapting to the environment to be successful in competition in the marketplace. And so that's all great and everything. But then I came across this article a few years ago here in Korea about pretty boys. And this is from the Korea Times in Seoul from a few years back, about how beauty products are exceptionally popular here in South Korea. It says here, beauty products for men have exponentially grown across much of the developed world, most strikingly in Korea. Literally billions of dollars in revenue flowed seemingly overnight with the advent of skin toner, makeup, and various male beauty products, unheard of not even a decade ago. And I won't go through all this article from the Korea Times in English language, of course, highlighting that as I've written before, this person, whoever this writer is, who is this writer? This writer is Durand Myers. That's not a Korean name. But as I've written before, though most societies put a premium on what is considered beautiful, Korea is probably the most obsessed with youth and beauty. Per capita, in other words, per person, no place on the planet in Earth has more plastic surgery procedures than Korea. It's no surprise then that what Korean cosmetics companies saw a market ripe for exploitation, that Korean market companies see a market ripe for exploitation, considering, for example, how Koreans are so obsessed with beauty, and no country per person spends more on plastic surgery than South Korea. You know, changing the face, your face to change your eyes or your nose. I mean, so my question to you is, please respond to the following statement. The popularity of plastic surgery in South Korea proves that Koreans are interdirected, focusing on mastering nature. I mean, doesn't that seem to imply that Koreans are interdirected? I mean, to think that I will change my features by God has given me my appearance, and then I will pay doctors to change my appearance so that I can be more attractive and more successful in life. Doesn't that sound really interdirected? Like to dominate and control culture here in this ancient Confucian society? Doesn't that sound interdirected? So let's go back to the cyber campus and put this in English so I can read it more easily here. And we go to vote. And so please vote on this topic and make sure, you're able to see that. In other words, is Trompenaars wrong about Korea being an outer directed society? And I would assume, I already mentioned earlier about how in some of these introductory textbooks on culture that they claim that the four tigers of Asia, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, are different because they've been so heavily influenced by Anglo-Saxon culture, whether it be British or American. But I would bet that if you go to Shanghai, China, you find lots of plastic surgery there as well. I mean, there's so much shared popular consumer trends that you see in South Korea and China that, I would think that the Chinese are also very, oriented increasingly, at least in the cities, to getting plastic surgery. So what do you think? So please vote. How do you respond to this statement? Are Koreans more interdirected? And so two are, how many agree? Three people agree, 4 disagree. Now, how do you think Trompenaars would respond to us pointing out to him, hey, Franz Trompenaars, Professor Trompenaars, you claim that East Asian societies are outer-directed, but how do you explain the emphasis on plastic surgery in countries? Doesn't that sound like the ultimate interdirected, that I will pay money and I will change the physical characteristics that God gave me, that nature gave me, I will master them and change them and create my own beautiful image? Doesn't that sound really interdirected? How do you think Trompenaars would respond to defend himself? And so let me divide you into breakout rooms here and ask you to communicate with each other and maybe make you into 3 groups and just assign you automatically. And so open the groups and let me see who's going to speak for each group. And I swore oh, there they are. Okay. And heads is the first person, tails is the bottom person, and it is heads. So that means it's going to be, I'll assign you to group 3. And so Young Jun Shin and Kritika and Gloria will speak. So help each other respond. And you have 60 seconds to talk with each other. So, of course, we have 2 people in the classroom and the rest are online. So please communicate with each other through your computers or your smartphones to help Gloria, Katiku, and Young Jun Shin. Where's Young Jun Shin? Is Young Jun Shin here? Well, Young Jun Shin is not to be found. So it's going to be Lee Ju Young. Lee Ju Young, will speak. Iju Yang will speak for room 3. Room 3. And again, don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted to get us thinking about this, about how you can gather evidence, but then you have to interpret it. And you saw that in the book. The Trompenaars tries to explain how sometimes you get these managers from former communist countries are the most individualistic, the most mechanistic, the most specific. And he claims, well, that's because those countries are still replying or responding to the terrible experience of communism. That's the reason that they're reacting still to other extremes. So can you try to explain Trompenaars' claim that Korea is and East Asia are outer directed cultures? How do you explain the popularity of plastic surgery here? And so let me flip a coin to see who's going to speak first. Heads, it's room 1. And it's tails. Heads, it's room 2. And it's heads. So room 2 will speak first. And that means Kritika, what are your thoughts as to why, how Trompenaars would attempt to defend his claim that plastic surgery popularity does not disprove the outer directedness of Asian culture? Kritika? And there's no right or wrong answer. Kritika? Kritika? You're muted, Kritika. Kritika? Kritika? Can you hear me, Kritika? Well, I don't know where Kritika is. So we will then go to heads is Gloria, and it's tails. So Iju Yang, Iju Yang. Oh, Iju Yang. Okay, so how might you defend Trompenaars? How might Trompenaars defend his claim that plastic surgery, that Korea is an outer directed, accommodative to the environment culture that is accommodative to the environment? But if somebody points out to Trompenaars how Korea is the capital of plastic surgery, doesn't that show that no, Koreans, they want to dominate and control their environment? How would you respond? And there's no right or wrong answer. What are your thoughts? Can you explain why Koreans have such popular plastic surgery, even though they are supposedly a culture that emphasizes accepting the environment rather than changing the environment? And I don't have an answer. Well, I have an answer now as I think about it. I was just wondering what you think about this. Go ahead. Yeah.
So people want to be fit in that standard beauty. So I think that's kind of sad, like that's accepting that standard beauty concept.
It's about conformity.
Yeah, I think.
It's about adapting to the environment.
Yeah. So people like that like beautiful people. So they want to be like in that kind of like in the standard. I mean, beautiful people person. They want to be a beautiful person, and then go how to like accept to that in society, and not like out of society. Yeah.
You know, that's a good point. I mean, and Trompenaars would say, we're talking about starting points here. We're talking about well, he doesn't use these terms, but we're talking about stereotypes here. Yeah, Koreans emphasize, and this is other news reporting. I got to make sure this thing is working here. Koreans emphasize self-discipline. You master and control yourself in order to be able to exploit and respond to the outside environment. Yeah, we all do it. Americans respond and accommodate to the outside environment too. But when you ask Americans, what is this key to success? They say, you have to go out there and you have to make things happen. You don't accept the status quo. You go out there and you take initiative and you're responsible for your own success. And it's just about you. And that's why Jeff Bezos, yay! Elon Musk, yay! Warren Buffett, yay! But at the same time, we know that's just a stereotype. Nobody, like Barack Obama said, nobody achieves anything great on their own, including in America. So it's an example of reconciliation, right? Yeah, we want to be successful. We want to accommodate the environment. The environment is society. And we have these standards about what is beautiful, and or what is effective or what is best, and we discipline ourselves through our own individual efforts with the support of family, mom and dad paying the money maybe, to master and raise and discipline ourselves in order to be able to exploit the opportunities that the environment provide. What do you think? Do you agree? Or you have different views?
Well, in this issue, of course, as you and entrepreneurs mentioned, that Korean or East Asian culture live with the environment, but this plastic surgery or cosmetic tendency is, I think, contemporary special case, because these days, Korean society and Korean workplace is kind of the network society. So Korean people don't really want to work as alone. We communicate and work as groups. So that's why the Korean companies have lots of interview in their entrance exam, so that's why appearance is important. And another reason could be the influence of the mass media, like the K idol or K culture. These kind of the mass media influences also affect these days contemporary East Asian plastic surgery tendency, I think.
Okay. Gloria, what are your thoughts?
My thought on surgical beauty or on companies and indirect ways of managing.
Yeah, what does plastic surgery tell you about the issue about whether or not Korea is outer or inner directed?
No, I think that Korea is inner directed, and I think that beauty in Korea is just a way of fitting in societal and sociological cases. And box, and I don't think it says about them that they look for managing nature in a weird way or in a precise way. I think otherwise maybe it can tell that they are submitted to the nature of society as a macro and a micro building of humans that judge each other, that wants to fit in a case, that wants other to fit in a case, to be reassured about their own insecurities. And I think that's more societal that there is that than a question of managing nature. Or I think they are more submitted, they are more slave, like everyone in this room, everyone in this world, slave of society in a whole.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, that's might be a Western, view
Yeah.
of critic. I mean, at the same time, of course, Trump on ours is all about the success of Asia and as a future model for dealing with the global problems that we face with global climate change, that we have to master ourselves in order to adapt to this global environment, that we have no choice but to accommodate to one way or the other, either by changing and mastering changing our own individual behaviors and the behaviors of organizations, or the environment changing them for us without us under their control through disasters and cataclysms and the intensification and amplification of social crises as a result of the failure to address global climate change through coordinating all elements of society as a communal whole, including national and global society. Kritika, you have the last word. Do you want to say anything, Kritika? Going once. Kritika.
Me?
Yes, go.
Okay. So I think that since like Oriental countries are kind of more communitarian and particularist, it's hard to say that political correctness is like a necessary subject in the workplace, especially between different positions of power.
Okay, and so that leads us then to the next topic, the debate. So let's have our debate here, and let me go to the share screen on the debate topic, and we go to vote, and the debate topic is political correctness is good management. Political correctness is good management. And so you can see the debate topic. And so I don't know, did I write it down? I think I wrote down some of who wrote what. I think I will let you choose the breakout rooms that you want to enter into. And so we will recreate them, and we'll make 2 groups and assign them randomly. And so I think we have Gloria. Let me see. This is rename this as pro, and this one as con. And I think Gloria was pro, so I have to move Gloria to pro. And Katika was pro. She's already there. And I think this person was con. Yi Ju Young, are you pro or con? Pro. Okay, move you to pro. And Daewok Won, are you pro or con? And Young Jin Shin, are you pro or con? Young Jun Shin? Young Jun
I'm
Shin?
con.
Okay, so move you to con. All right. So let's see. Who will speak first? Let's say heads, it's the bottom person in each group will speak first. So for pro, let's see, heads, it's the bottom person in each group speaks. So it's heads. So that means Yi Ju Young will speak first for pro, and Young Jun Shin will speak first for con. And so please communicate with each other. And so you have 30 seconds. Oh, please join the group. Sorry, I forgot to let you join the groups. So please join the groups. And okay, and so you have 30 seconds to get your notes prepared and your statements, and we will start with pro. So Yi Ju Young will speak first for pro. You're Yi Ju Young, right? Okay, go ahead.
So I think political correctness is good management because first, if you look at the background of the beginning of political correctness, it is the movement that supports multiculturalism and opposes language use or activities based on sexism or racism and tries to correct it. A typical example is the use of the expression disabled to handicapped or the use of the word Black to African American. So it started with the desire to create a fair and more diverse society by caring and respecting others. So even when introduced into business or management, it uses respectful gestures to avoid inconvenient situations and create opportunities to think before taking other discriminatory actions or gestures. So therefore, if you manage with a political correctness perspective in the field of management, you can try to understand various people in the company better, work with consideration for sensitive parts, so you can achieve more of efficient and effective results and create an atmosphere for forming a sound culture.
Okay. Young Junshin, please respond to for Khan. Young Junshin.
I don't think management with using political correctness is not correct, bad. Mainly, it's not right on a matter such as our incomes and recruit, and it have problem in recruitment, I think, because if political correctness is reflected in considering hiring and a socially disadvantaged person gets extra points and is hired to beat out those who have no extra points for it, this discriminates against those who are not hired for pursuing political correctness. Such as an example of this is the female quota system in Korea. The policy calls for hiring 50% of public offices as female public officers. The women's quota system, which was implemented in jobs such as police and firefighters, where practice is more important than administration, was criticized for gender discrimination as it allowed female civil servants to be hired over men with excellent work or performance skills such as physical strength. The same is true of other areas. Being socially disadvantaged is not a reason to deny one's effort and impose unfair consideration. And I think consideration for the socially disadvantaged is not unnecessary because I think it's not bad thing that to give up seats on public transportation to someone physically weaker than you or me, such as handicapped person. However, if management is performed on the premise of this and for this consideration, there will be people who will be discriminated against.
Okay, Kwon Deok for pro. Very controversial statements, very timely considering the Korean presidential election.
Thank you for statements, but I agree with the statement that political correctness is good management because we are living the era of globalization. Companies are no longer just staying a single country. People from different backgrounds work together and negotiate with overseas companies. So that means ignorance of other cultures can be a dangerous prejudice. So PC is an extension of social moral code for this era of globalization and multiculturalism. So I think political correctness could be a social standard that informs that one's expression or saying can be a discrimination or insult to someone in another culture. So it can be the ethical standards necessary necessary, and this is a business management method that essential for companies, especially that need to go overseas or people have different backgrounds. Thank you.
Good, good. Moon Sun Young for pro.
I'm in the
Khan, sorry, Khan. Moon Sun Young for Khan.
Can I say, can you hear me? Can I say? Political connectedness is always exist anywhere, and these are good that Asian people usually think Asians are more want to make group and follow the group rules, but the varieties always exist anywhere and the other country, except the other country also. And this is not only for Korean, and they need some strong thought conversion using the belief. It is the political correctness and using the people's fear to our country's people who have won their belief is good for management to maintain their fear belief. And this is not only our country too. Thank you.
Okay, Gloria, you have the last word for pro.
Yeah, I'm pro. So I said that as we previously saw in the book, South Korea is more identified as a diffuse culture for many reasons, and political correctness is something we use every day to deal with our emotions, others' ones, and to avoid building the burden of making people face things they don't want to simply by asking the wrong question or over and under reacting. And in the workplace, political correctness is indeed a good management, especially for Asian countries, which stress a lot the importance of respect. Political correctness helps us to deal with the different cultures, and because of it, we can attract each other, make deal with each other, also create goodness in the exchange. It is simply because we are all different that we have so much to exchange with each other, and I personally don't think that there is one and only way of managing, even though this myth of the universal applicability of management techniques is still relevant in our business societies. And that's why I truly believe that political correctness is the link between cultural differences. Transnationalism, to be more specific, follows a scheme of cyclic reconciliation between culture that gives us hope because it allows us to dream about various management, exploring the qualities of various individuals and societies. And as a counter-argument to this thesis, we could argue that even with all the willingness in the world of management societies, sometimes cultural differences get in the way. For instance, one manager could think about pay in a way and view performance in another way than the other manager, or vice versa.
Okay, all right. So we only have a few minutes left, and so let us go then to the vote. And please vote on whether or not you think political correctness is good management. And so you can see the results there, and so 3 of you are pro. So how do we interpret this in terms of current discourse that we see in the news media regarding the reconciliation of outer and inner directed management techniques for profitability, at least, or effectiveness in the United States? Media reports. And so we have here, if I can find it, this is for you to know. This is from about a year ago. Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett's company. Warren Buffett is one of these titans of the universe, like Jeff Bezos and others who we glorify in the United States. And it goes on in this news report from the business section of the New York Times. Executive across corporate America from Silicon Valley to Wall Street have begun to heed calls from investors to disclose more about their company's action on climate change and workforce diversity, right? Warren E. Buffett isn't among them. Berkshire Hathaway, that's his company, the $630 billion dollar conglomerate he runs is opposing two shareholder proposals. Can you see this? I have to make sure you can see this. He's opposing two shareholder proposals that ask its board to publish annual reports on how it is tackling environmental and diversity issues. Berkshire shareholders are expected to follow his lead and reject those initiatives at the company's annual meeting on Saturday, the second online iteration of an event known as Woodstock for Capitalists. But this may leave the 90-year-old Mr. Buffett, perhaps the world's most admired investor, increasingly out of step with the times. We are not going to shy away from holding Berkshire accountable just because it's run by Warren Buffett, said Simiso Nzima, the head of corporate governance at CalPERS, the giant California public pension fund that co-sponsored a climate disclosure proposal. Through his assistant, Mr. Buffett declined to comment. Broadly, there appears to be more discontent about Berkshire's corporate governance now than in previous years. Institutional Shareholder Services, the influential shareholder advisor, recommended withholding votes for members of the board's compensation committee over what it said was the ineffective oversight of how pay is linked to performance. The high salaries of top Berkshire executives, Ajit Jain and Gregory Abel, who are seen as potential successors to Mr. Buffett, were a particular concern. But it is Berkshire's rejection of demands to do more on climate and diversity that extends out. Environmental, social, and governance principles known as ESG are increasingly prominent in the business world. It pops up often in the New York Times media reports. BlackRock, the $8 trillion investment giant, has urged companies in which it owns stakes to do more on climate and sensitive social and political issues. It owns nearly 5% of Berkshire. It declined to comment on its vote. And how long is this article? It might be too long to go. Well, not too long, I guess. Now you have more funds focused on ESG topics than 10 years ago, and more of Berkshire's base is comprised of those kinds of funds more than 10 years ago, said Lawrence Cunningham, professor of law at George Washington University and a Berkshire shareholder. That spurred the shareholder proposal that will face a vote at Berkshire's meeting. One by CalPERS and other investors also asked Berkshire to publish annual summaries of how it is responding to climate change. It is only the latest environmentally minded proposal that the company has faced over the past decade, but this year's iteration is backed by big institutions instead of an individual shareholder. So these big institutions are demanding Berkshire Hathaway deal with ESG, environmental, social, and governance principles in their investment decisions. And he needs to do this. They say Warren Buffett must do this, and Warren Buffett doesn't want to do this. Again, more shareholder advocacy on this topic. And Berkshire does not dispute the importance of this issue. It says, of course, it agrees about the importance of climate change and the diverse and inclusive workforce. And it emphasizes the argument against those proposals is tied to what the company calls its unusually decentralized business model. In other words, they cannot really adopt ESG principles to apply to all of the Berkshire Hathaway project because it's too diverse. Its various subsidiaries employ about 360,000 people around the world. So I don't know if I really want to, we only have a couple minutes left in the class. So you can see here the political correctness issues is now framed in terms of ESG issues, environmental, social, and governance principles. That's the terminology that's being used a lot to address these notions of making sure to accommodate and reconcile diversity. So how do you think? How do you respond to this statement? ESG is political correctness. So let's go back to the vote. Vote on the, let's see here, call this up and go here. So is ESG political correctness? And scroll down to the bottom here. And ESG is political correctness. And please vote. And so I think just about everybody has voted. And so this is evidently, at least according to the business media, in the New York Times is, the most influential news source, most authoritative news source in the United States. This notion of accommodating diversity is is accepted as standard practice, and Trompenars is supposed to tell us how we should do that in our companies. So I think that's it for today. If we go back to the notes here, again, it's not so, it's not presenting anything really new. It's just emphasizing the need to accommodate and reconcile diversity is a focus in this chapter. And again, but keeping in mind that you need to build a moral edifice. That means emotion, you know, and this is a challenge because people view culture as issues of right and wrong. And I want to be rewarded for acting in the right way. And people who act in the wrong way should be punished. And so you have to create a clear moral edifice in the company about what is the right and wrong way to behave. And problems for the cross-cultural manager, centralization versus decentralization. This we can come to again at another time when we have more time in other classes. But I think that's it. So here you see how a corporation should run, focusing on decentralization. And that's it for today. Okay, so let me close the class.